Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lauren, and today I will be presenting my capstone, which is 4 Seasons Events. So to start off, I want to introduce you to Nicole. And Nicole is in the center in that picture. She is an event planner. She actually started her own business, Perry Consulting, years ago in California. And she moved to Arizona, where she's been working for a while. And she really does any kind of event you want, including graduations, weddings, banquets, golf tournaments. She does a lot of nonprofit events. And so she's really good at what she does. And I know Nicole through my mother. That's her right there. And she's been working for Nicole since I was in high school. And Nicole came up with this idea about 10 years ago to open up her own event venue. She's been working out of her home the entire time she's had her own business. And so she thought it would be really cool to open up her own space. And she also knows that I am an interior design student. And she's asked me previously, I think about sophomore year, if the opportunity ever arose, if I could design this event venue that she had kind of dreamed up. If I could design it in any of my classes in any way, like anything would be like helpful for her to kind of get her idea out there. And as we know, our projects have been, they allow for creativity, but they're pretty rigid in the concept. So it wasn't until capstone when I had the opportunity to actually work on this project for her. And so it wasn't until I met with Nicole, and I had already told her that I was doing this for my capstone. She already knew this was the plan. It wasn't until I met with her that I learned that she had a specific concept in mind. All I knew was that it was a complex of buildings. So there were 3 or 4 different buildings, so multiple events could happen at the same time. So her concept, I learned, was very specific and based on the 4 seasons. So that means that there would be a space for summer, fall, winter, and spring, and these are some of my inspiration pictures that I picked out. And so once I kind of learned about this concept, I was like, wow, that's a lot to work with. Like, how do I make it not so thematic and more flexible, I guess? And so the first word I came up with to kind of describe my space was adaptable. I knew that event spaces needed to be adaptable and flexible, so any type of event could be held there. And while this project focuses on weddings, I really meant for it to be an option for any type of event. The next word is astonishing. I wanted the space to have a really unique feel to it. Obviously, it's already unique with the 4 different options in one space and the seasonal theme. But I wanted the spaces to have, like, all of these are amazing pictures and they look beautiful. I wanted the same kind of feel in my space. And my last word is attentive. It's really important for Nicole that as for her job, she anticipates the needs of her clients before they even realize that they need it. So she's on top of it. She never wants them to feel like she was unprepared. And so I wanted the space to kind of have that same feel, where the needs of these clients are already met before they even get there. And so after I got my concept, going into my research, the first thing I decided to research was LEED, or Leadership in Energy and Design. And this was important to both me and my client, Nicole. She's very into making sure that events are very energy efficient and sustainable, and that's a passion of mine as well. And it's actually found that LEED buildings are 25 to 30% more energy efficient than standard buildings. The next research topic was event venue design. I knew that I was going to be designing this event venue, but I knew nothing about designing them. All of our projects have been residential or business related. So this was kind of stepping out of my comfort zone. And one thing that I found that I really liked is that when you're designing an event space, it's important that you build your own brand while still having a space that's versatile enough to meet a variety of clients' needs. So that was really important to me. It kind of goes back to that adaptable word that I chose. And lastly, I researched biomimicry, which is just design that mimics nature, which I felt was both beneficial for, it's beneficial when humans have a connection to nature, but it also was beneficial for my concept of the seasons. So it seemed to be a good fit. And it found that nature has created solutions to problems that we face when we're doing any type of design. So that was kind of inspiring to me, and it was really fun to research. So now I kind of want to flip where I'm going, and I want you to meet the couple. Their names are David and Caitlin. And David and Caitlin are newly engaged, and they are looking for event venues in Arizona. And they're kind of annoyed because they've seen a couple different places, and they'll go out and visit, and they're not happy or satisfied with what they find, so then they have to drive all the way home. So they're really excited when they hear about Four Seasons events because they get to see 4 different options all in one place. So they head out there and they meet their guide for the day, Aaron. And Aaron will be giving them a tour of Four Seasons events. So the first thing that the couple notice when they drive out to Four Seasons events, which is in Glendale, Arizona, the first thing they notice is their layout, and they see all these different buildings. The first one they notice is the smallest, the hub, which is where they will be meeting Aaron initially. And if they decide to plan their event there, that is where they'll be meeting with their event planner. There are private offices, conference rooms, workstations, and additional storage for accessories for the events. The next, they see the summer building, the fall building, the spring building, and the winter building. So they see all of the exteriors of these. And when they go in and meet with Aaron, they get kind of a rundown of the space. And first they learn that each space has its own outdoor area. So if you want your event to have some kind of outdoor component, that's an option. If not, at least you have nicer views than a parking lot looking out from your event. The next is there's an interior courtyard, which allows for places where the couples can take pictures after their ceremony. It's also one thing that Nicole really likes is that she gives time after the ceremony, before the reception, where she believes the couple should have some alone time to kind of process what just happened. So that is also an option where that can take place. There are parking lots out along both sides of the buildings that allow easy access because of all the entry points are on each side. It's not necessary for them to funnel through the hub to get to each space, which was one concept I originally had. And so this seems like a better option where there's parking on each side dependent on which space you're in. So each space includes the same amenities, even though they vary in size. So they each have a lobby, a ceremony space, a reception space, a restroom, kitchens, and storage for all the tables and chairs. So now that they've gotten kind of this rundown, Aaron's going to guide David and Caitlin through all their different options. So their first option is summer, which is in the bottom, left-hand corner of the complex. And the summer space was meant to feel kind of like a greenhouse. It was really important to kind of bring the outdoors in because that's what we associate with summer. Not so much in central Arizona, you don't want to be outside in the summer, but that's the stereotype. You want to be outside during the summer, so that was really important. And so this is the summer space, the reception space particularly. And as you can see, it includes a lot of natural materials, light bamboo flooring, stone columns, some decorative plants there for a specific event. It is set up for a reception at the moment with the bridal party tables, dance floor, and all of the surrounding banquet tables. There's a balcony that provides several different purposes. And the first is to allow for setup during events. If they want to hang something or set up some electronics like speakers, that can be done up there, as well as a DJ can set up there. It also helps provide some acoustic barriers it allows to kind of break up that sound that is in this large space. There's a bank of windows that look out into that outdoor area, and that for the summer space, it was important that there were a lot of windows since I was bringing the outdoors in, so that's why it's basically a wall of windows in this space. And the wooden arches kind of help to further that greenhouse feel. And now Caitlin and David, they like this space, but it's not quite what they want. So Erin brings them into the next option, which is fall, in the top left corner of the complex. And the fall is meant to have that more industrial feel with those warm, like autumn tones. And so this is that ceremony space for fall. And as you can see, there's dark wood floorings and stone walls that add that industrial vibe, as well as the patinaed metal roof with the steel beams, which is kind of gives off that barn vibe, which is also in the industrial area. And there are windows up top that allow in that light, and it's also along this side. And they're actually frosted, so it kind of creates that cloudy autumn day feel as opposed to the direct sunlight. And there's the focal wood wall in the back that provides a backdrop for ceremonies. And once again, David and Caitlin, they feel this is a little too trendy for what they want for their wedding, so they move on to the next option, which is spring, in the top right-hand corner of the complex. And spring is meant to feel very light and feminine and having more of that Art Deco vibe with the pastels and neutrals. And so this is the reception space for spring. And this is one of the larger spaces as well. And it provides a neutral color palette. So whenever clients come in, they can still set up whatever colors they need while it's still not being just a white room. The architectural details along the wall provide visual interest and give it that more classic feel, as well as the alcove in the back that can be set up with a bar or catering or a band, whatever you need. And it's actually in that back wall, there's a fish scale motif on the wall, so it provides a little more visual interest, bringing in that Art Deco feel while still being neutral. And once again, Caitlin likes this space, but David feels it's a little too classic for him. And they're starting to lose hope. They're like, we drove all the way out here to see all these options, and it's not right. Until they go into the winter space, which is in the bottom left-hand or right-hand corner of the complex. And this space is meant to feel very ethereal. It has that contemporary cathedral vibe to it, very clean and white and reminiscent of winter. And this space, this is the ceremony space, is meant to feel like a church. And it has that kind of church shape with the rounded apse at the end. Very clean plaster walls, clear story windows that add some visual interest and allow light to just flood the space and give it that very cathedral-like feeling to it. And David and Caitlin, they love this space. It actually reminds Caitlin that when she was younger, she wanted a winter wonderland wedding, which she knew she couldn't have in central Arizona. But being in this space, it just reminds her of that. And that's one of the purposes of this whole concept that Nicole came up with, was when she talks to clients, whether they're from Arizona or not, she'll often ask them, well, what do you think of Arizona? Like, just making conversation, and they'll say, like, yeah, we love it. We just wish we had seasons. Like, in central Arizona, it's basically one long season with 2 weeks of like 60-degree weather, and that's our winter. So Nicole wanted it to be that you could have a winter wedding even in 95-degree heat. And so that's where the whole concept of this comes from. So now that David and Caitlin have picked their space, you all are invited to their wedding, which will be in December, but we get a little sneak peek. And this is the big day. This is the reception space in the winter building. And as you can see, it continues that kind of contemporary cathedral feel with the arches and the balcony. This one, the windows are more spread out because it's not as important having that direct contact to the outdoors. The balcony helps provide, once again, that kind of acoustic barrier that kind of breaks up the sound, as well as there's a carpet on the second story and around the border. There's a terrazzo flooring that kind of mimics that fresh snowfall. It kind of glistens like that. And it's, as you can see, very clean for this setup, but in any of the spaces, they could be decorated to feel more like that particular season. It was really important for me to kind of have a base for all of these buildings and not have them just scream like winter when you walk in, but that you can kind of relate, like, oh, I can see it, and you can build on it. If you want it to scream winter, it can. And so, in summary, I created a space that I believe is adaptable, astonishing, and attentive, and really draws the eye. I utilize lead event venue design and biomimicry in my project, and I really encapsulated this feeling of the 4 seasons. Thank you. It was cursive. Kyrie, yeah.
I thought the storytelling was like very, very cool the way you did it, and then like even at the end where you're like, oh, you're all in my up, like ready to clap, and I'm like, you're done. And you're like, no, wait, there's more. I think it was really cool the way you did that.
I also agree. I like the couple theme. That's very unique. I really just liked how your presentation was laid out. It was very nice and organized, and all the icons were really good. I 100% agree. That's what I was going to say.
I apologize for the text. I
did not embed her fonts.
No,
It's all good. It
That was
happens.
supposed to be cursive. It's because I did not make it a JPEG. It was.
Wouldn't
It
have
happens.
known
It happens to
if
the best of us.
You didn't say anything.
Well, that's why I didn't say it at the beginning.
You're like, mm-hmm.
Yeah. It did seem a little small on some of the slides, so I apologize for that. If it was. Okay. Well,
Lauren, can you go back to the winter church setup?
also the transitions seem a little different on here.
Probably
They
just
seem
the
more smooth
PowerPoint.
on my computer. I don't know. Yes.
Well, I know you put a lot of thought in how the buildings relate, so can you describe what's beyond those arches?
Oh,
just
yes,
for,
thank you. So actually in the winter and the summer spaces, the ceremony and reception spaces kind of connect, and so this is that connection. There is a small corridor in between the two, which can be seen here. But there's these set of arches, and then behind there's another set with some pivoting doors that are about 6 feet wide, I believe. So when they're open, they open in the middle. And so there's 3 feet on either side, so people can transition in between the different spaces. And so if it's not a wedding, if it's just some large event and they want both spaces, people can flow between the two. Or if they want to go directly after the ceremony and it's ready and they just want to be like this grand reveal, they can just head right in. Or they can remain closed. But that is what those are. Thank you.
I was glad for that clarification because, on some of them I'm like, is that fixed seating? Is it? Can you remove those chairs?
It's
None of it.
No.
Yeah, it's all removable.
Yes.
Because my first thought was like, oh my goodness, that is a lot of space dedicated to just for a ceremony. Mm-hmm. And so it made me think what Nicole, I'm like, obviously this is driven by Nicole and what her needs were and what she was thinking, but that makes sense to me that can be utilized as something else.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe, I'm like, if this ever comes to fruition, I wonder if it would need to be value engineered to, what if there was one ceremony space, but then there could be different venues that you could have reception or, I don't know, but that makes sense now.
Yeah. Thank
Cool.
you for asking that.
adaptable spaces.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Which is good.
And the spaces are pretty large. They can hold about, I think it's 300 in the smaller spaces. So
In the larger spaces up to...
it did actually end up being closer to 700,
Wow.
which is what the original goal
Right,
was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Which
she
is
actually also
enormous.
wants about 3 different size spaces, so 2 large being the fall and spring, winter being a medium size and summer being a smaller size. But for this project, I decided to kind of pare it down and make it pretty symmetrical.
When you first had the 4 buildings next to each other, I'm like, I'm missing like what's going on in between them and the walkways, and so I was so glad that then the next slide you addressed that, and I was like, oh, phew, like, that's good, that's good. And great job. You took notes as far as telling the story. You incorporated that into your presentation, so it just added another element to it. So I thought that was.
I was really excited about that. I was like, I had the idea, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be so fun.
Yeah.
I really like the progression, the way you started with the concept, and then again I kind of felt the same thing. It's like you throw up the buildings, and then as soon as you hit the next slide, direct say, okay, now you're adding. Okay, here's the lawn area, and then because there's as you know, there's so much stuff there. I mean, these are 5 projects unto themselves, and.
Stay there.
So to put everything up there would have just been a bunch of busy. And I really liked again on the presentation where you showed where the entries were in all 4 at the same time, because we didn't need that much of a detail. It walked us through so that as we went back and visited each one, we kind of had a context for each one. So the way you took us through, even just before we met the couple, I thought had a very natural, nice flow. It kept our interest. You didn't spend any too much time on any one thing without something else coming up. I will say on this slide, minor critique, the color of the chairs to me doesn't read as much winter. I get the structure of it, but also that could easily be a solution because they're individual chairs. You get a slip covers any color you want. I would think for the adaptability.
Yeah. It's meant to be a different set of furniture for each building. So this was more just conceptual in there to show the spacing. But yes, I agree.
That was probably the best storytelling I've seen of any student I've ever had.
Wow,
So good job.
Really only, there hasn't been much storytelling, has there? I'm like, crap.
Well, when I teach 462, like I really go into storytelling, at least for this, like how important the story is.
Was your presentation.
So the fact that you took that is awesome. But you can see how powerful that is and how it draws people in, and it really just makes you instantly buy into it when you know how to tell a good story, how there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end, right? So good job there. The other thing I really liked about what you did was kind of at the beginning, you really brought your experience of your own journey into the capstone into this, which is kind of unique as well. The fact that, you were challenging yourself and you were doing that kind of thing, I thought that was super special. So good job, Lauren.
When you also, in talking about, you work directly with the client versus creating something out of whole cloth or a personal thing. Because that makes all this real, and we all have this initial conversation, and then somewhere when you're on the path they drop a ball on you. It's like 4 different buildings. And that's our world that we live in. So it was great for you to actually experience that. Just to talk about a concept, and then when you actually met, you got this other whole side of it that really formed what's in front of you. So that's a cool thing to experience.
I can't wait for her to see this.
Nicole's goal is to actually
I wish she were
build
here.
this. And I haven't shown her. The last thing I showed her was like my mood boards and like my midterm stuff.
Oh my goodness.
And so I
wish you could have come here.
I invited her along with my mom, and they were just too busy, especially since
It's
we're
wedding
leaving
season.
It is
we're on
wedding
vacation. But so I'm probably just gonna present this to her and do the same
Or you
thing.
could show her the video.
That's true. But yeah, so I will be showing her soon.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yay!